Your microphone is not on.
Alors, on va recommencer parce qu'on avait dit qu'on terminerait à 1h30, qu'on avait 5 minutes par groupe, ce qui n'est vraiment pas beaucoup, pour faire le rapport. Et ensuite, on va prendre une pause. Alors, comme j'ai dit au groupe, plus on parle, puis plus la pause va être courte. Alors, si vous voulez avoir le temps de vous reposer un petit peu avant de recommencer, je vais laisser la parole à Timo. Ou tu veux que je donne or do you want
I don't know idea what did you say, but anyway, we're going to do like this. We start, you have now 4 minutes per group, and you can take the microphone and then report back. Number one will start, and you can do it on where you are now or come here in the front.
Make sure to use
But use the microphone,
because
please.
otherwise the translator can't hear. Le number one with the reporter. Regarde, il y a un micro là-bas. Tiendront. Oh, here it's good. Ouais, ben d'ici. Parfait, merci. So, this is group number one. Tierno is going to report the main ideas from the group.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sure that the group is going to complete what I'm going to say if I miss something. 4 minutes? Oh, okay, thank you. So for question one, what we say is, to have a select priority area and also to have a political willingness and to establish relationship and credibility and building trust and sharing role. For the question two, actually we talk about, having small data at local level, which is very challenging. And also we talk about translating the data in order to be understood by policy makers and decision makers. And we talk also about establishing credibility, and we had an example from New Zealand about the concept of well-being index. Actually, we are talking about, instead of using the word health, to use the word health, to use the word well-being instead of using the word health. And of course, we talk about the definition of WHO, the definition of health given by WHO in its constitution from 1948. Having an holistic approach and the idea of wellness rather than the idea of health, to try to get the other sectors involved in the process. And question three, we talk about all about health. All things go through health system services or disease, and we have to see how we can change that. And we talk also about the fact that health promotion benefits a kind of long-term benefits. It's going to take time to see result or the outcomes of health promotion approach, and to try to demonstrate success or fast results that is quite challenging. And for the question 4, and we talk about we discuss about the power region, which has indicators for evaluating some initiatives, and also we talk about Quebec, the province of Quebec, which has a national program in public health, and which has which do some evaluation, but actually is quite sensitive, and sometimes we do evaluation, but we don't have the result of all the action that have been done. And for the last one, we were thinking about what is going to miss? We are thinking about sharing maybe language or a vision or something on how to engage community, to support community, and using also opportunities like SDGs, currently opportunities, tools to help us with a language to link the HIAP approach or HIAP approach with SDGs, and also maybe in the, I don't have the figure here, but it's adding, we have structure, we have processes, and maybe we should add actors. I don't remember exactly what it was, identifying structures and processes, and then we can add also actors in the one there, yeah. And also building a relationship, negotiate. I think that was the idea that we discussed in the group. I don't know if the group want to add something. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Number 2, the group number 2, who was the reporter? Ah, d'accord. Ce serait préférable que vous veniez en avant. Puis en passant, les notes, même manuscrites, si vous nous envoyez ça par la suite, ça va être vraiment apprécié pour le rapport. Merci beaucoup.
En français ou en anglais?
Comme tu veux, c'est comme tu le sens.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So, I will go in English, but if you have any question, because if I'm not clear enough, just ask me, and I will translate in French. So we started by the end. We started to discuss the question number 5, but I will begin my report by question number 2 because we discussed only 2 questions. So the second one, which is about the data and evidence. What did we say? We say that it might be very useful to use survey to get the more knowledge about the people or the population who we want to give the service. So just to know them better, so to use survey. That's another kind of data. And we said also that the problem with data is often it's not available. So that's the challenge to implement policy with not enough data. So that's challenge, like I say. But otherwise, it might be very useful to involve decision makers because when we have data, we are more effective to convince decision maker. Because also we can, when it's also available, use data who speaks about money. So the cash. So it's always like you said this morning, that cash is always a good way to convince and to rally.
Repetition I'm gonna have.
And about data also, a challenge, it's that very difficult to communicate easily. So because we can get lost in data and evidences, so it's always just we need to find a way to communicate it more easily, more for more people. So that's the main point about question 2. And for the question 5, maybe like Taylor, we spoke about driving community policy, so how to involve more people in our decision or in the HIAP process. And we talked also about resources, which is, we had this discussion about a dedicated team or more integrated team, which is what we kind of agreed all together that the best way might be something in the between, just to have a team dedicated and also people working in a different sector, but also to find a common ground to work together because it brings more stability also when the government change and give more place to share knowledge between the sectors. And one last thing, maybe it's also about HIA, which is I know quite well because I do some from time to time. So we also talked that it might be a good things to implement because it's HIA process can be a good easy way to implement the GNHiAP process, so to bring more solution involving the decision maker, citizens as well too. So that's maybe something to have on our radar on the scale if we talk about health in our policies. That's it.
Merci, Gilles. Le groupe numéro 3.
Hi, and thanks to my group for helping.
You need to speak in the microphone.
Okay, I shall. Okay, very good, very good. Okay, time is ticking. So we saw that the three initiating, adopting, and implementing were sort of holistically approached it holistically rather than sort of siloed. As we spoke to this morning, there's a common language across sectors. So there's usually an understanding of health and home policies that already exists in other sectors, and they also have very similar networks. So what we perhaps need to do as one of the initiating things is a mapping exercise of similar networks, similar understandings that already exist in other sectors. Manon made a note in terms of France. Again, build on stuff that's already there. So, for instance, she mentioned that there are already contracts that exist between municipalities and regional health organisations and associations that we can work on. And those are financial contracts. So there's an instrument already existing that brings people together, that's got financial elements to it that exist, that can address multi-sectoral issues like urban planning, like transport. So again, build on what already exists rather than trying to see health and home policies we need to do something new. A key point that Juan on the table and Eduardo made was you need to look at health and home policies at all levels, all settings, and all sites. So it needs to be holistic, because in doing that, you'll also look at civil society. So civil society has got to be at the table, and it's got to be inclusive. So civil society has got to be there. The other thing is Manon made the question, or raised the point about the private sector. Often leadership and government in private sector and industry is doing health and all policies in their workplace. So again, not discriminating against any particular sector, group, or community, seeing this as a very inclusive objective that we all have. And again, health and all policies, we had a slight discussion about health and all policies or health and all policies approaches. If you put approaches there, it becomes very technical. So it often excludes people. Oh, there's an approach there, there's a framework that's going to be technical. Health and all policies, the outcome, everyone can buy into, health and well-being. So it's policies for health and well-being. And there's an inclusive, and you get automatic buy-in from many, many stakeholders than if you attach the approaches to the outside of it. Question 2, data. We felt that who decides what data gets collected? What data do we collect? Who collects it? And who analyses it? Because there's all equity issues around that. And you need to address those issues, because where and who collects the data and how it's collected will all affect the data that you have to analyse. The other thing is that Juan made the distinction, or Eduardo in actual fact, between data, which is neutral, and evidence, which is being put through a lens. And data has a very powerful convening role. People on our table said that public health, and again it was iterated this morning, a lot of data is held by the public health, and you can pull people in. And if you just talk about data, you'll get people to buy in, because they can say, we've also got some data that we can put into the pot. And then it becomes a question of compatibility of the data, interoperability, and seeing how we can all understand. And the value is that everyone can then use their own lenses to get the evidence out of that data to help them to do what they want to do, but you've got a common beginning, and everyone understands the data, the basis of those decisions. Another aspect was communicating the data. We talk about advocacy in health and all policies, and we tend to look at it from a very technical point of view. We don't look at it in terms of communicating to society, civil society, other people outside our own sphere. So again, we felt that communicating data at number 5 was one of the things that wasn't really very well addressed in terms of advocacy and where we want to go. The other thing is making sure the data was a very local level, because you get a very close connection between the data and what you want to do at a local level, whereas at a national level you tend to get the data, and because it's being generalized, because it's being compressed, there's often quite a big distance between what you want to do and the data itself. And again, we talked about basically taking out the bias out of the data, so making sure that Indigenous groups can see that that data reflects their community and they've got buy-in to the data rather than it being perhaps put through at a national government level and there is some perceived bias in there as well. And again, the closeness of that data at a local level really makes it a better understanding in terms of the subpopulations that you're trying to reach. Very quickly on the team, we felt that there were particular skill sets and competencies that health and health policies needed. If you're going to go and talk about health and health policies to education sector, to the agricultural sector, you have to understand in depth the agricultural sector. What do they mean? You need to understand their policies. That will take an individual or person trained to have the ability to go in and analyse and understand policies in areas outside public health. So we feel that those are particular skill sets of a health and health policies team. Again, all our table recognise that there are many other health impact assessments. Everyone's got health and health policies skills, but we really need more focused skills. And then there were just my last point, two very interesting examples. One from Quebec. As I understand it, the Public Health Department has identified some priorities, has got a budget that then they are able to use long-term to draw in other sectors to address these multi-sectoral problems. So we have got some initiating activities in Quebec that are getting to what we were talking about this morning about money. The money's in the public health hands. It can pull the other sectors in to long-term address those issues. Eduardo made the point, actually what we really need to do is at that governance level, we need multi-sectoral financial planning. So you start off with, there is a line in the budget for multi-sectoral activities. And then you can say, right now, something like water. Everyone is going to be involved in water. There's a budget for it. Okay, what do we all need to address water, and how is that budget then compartmentalized or distributed? And basically 4 and 5, we felt by addressing all these points, we've actually gone through 4 and 5, but I'm up to my 4 minutes, so I won't do 4 and 5. Was there anything else I missed, team, or? No? Okay.
Group number 4, Olivier.
I think it's going to be really hard to add something to what has been said already by the 3 first groups. What we discussed as the key drivers, I think two main points came out. A key driver could be health data, health inequality data that kind of drive the agenda and put a necessity to work together differently on the agenda, so that it can be an entry point for health and all policy approach. Another entry point that was highlighted by the group was all the other cross-sectoral strategies or initiatives that are already happening. So we talked about early childhood initiatives, obesity initiatives. We talked about the SDGs. We talked about also the climate change that is becoming a major initiative, a major driver for cross-sectoral collaboration that could be a major entry point for health and all policy approach. If we go to data and evidence, I guess one of the points that we made was that data could be a good entry point. It could be a good lever, and we have a lot of data, as everyone said, in health and in public health. But we're also very good at analyzing data, so we can support other sectors into analyzing their data and combining it with health and public health data. But we focused a lot on data is not enough, so we need to be focusing on stories, on narratives that are going to be interesting for other sectors, for policymakers, and stories that are able to convey a very specific message in a short amount of time, to capture interest. And we also discussed, to go back to what the group 3 just said, a bit about how the data is collected and some of the challenges that there are in different sectors. So some data in some sectors are deemed okay to be collected at the disaggregated level for inequality purposes, but are not considered to be okay in different jurisdictions or in different sectors because it can give the wrong impression in terms of communication, that it's reinforcing some biases. So there's need to be a discussion about what could be collected and how and by whom in those cross-sectoral collaboration. In terms of dedicated staff, I don't think that the table had a very strong position, but one of the things that was said is that we need at least to know what is the contact person. There needs to be at least one person or one office that people can direct their inquiries. And that person could also, or that team could also be responsible for then mobilizing champions across the other sectors. And they are the one, and that makes the transition to the other point. There needs to be someone responsible for monitoring and evaluation. And if you don't have at least a very small dedicated team, it's really hard to have those very important steps of monitoring and evaluation. If I go to the last question, what is missing for the implementation of health and all policy, I think two ideas came out most strongly at the table. One of them was that we need to be better at circulating stories about what's happening in different jurisdictions, both the challenges but also the success and what has been put forward to surmount those challenges, and the stories also at the level of initiatives. There's the broad approach of health and all policy, but there's all the smaller successes that happened under this umbrella term. And the other thing was the tools, the very practical, down-to-earth tools, the checklists, the tables, the tools that the administrations are using to make the health and all policy approach a success that needs to be shared so that people are not reinventing the wheel. They're just adapting for their own purposes and to their own context. And again, to go back to the stories behind those tools, how they have been used, what were the specific purposes, need to be told also. So did I miss anything about our discussion at table 4? Thank you.
Table number 5 is Carmel.
I was not a member of the group, but in the end they asked me to read my notes in French. So I was taking the notes for the report. As many ideas were already presented by the other groups, you won't miss a lot, but it will be in French for the change. Donc, le groupe a commencé à discuter de la pertinence de présenter les différents sens du mot santé Donc, ce n'est pas nécessairement les soins de santé, mais ça peut dire plusieurs choses. Et c'est une opportunité pour travailler en collaboration avec les différents secteurs. Aussi, ça peut éviter le risque que le secteur de la santé, qui détient déjà la moitié des budgets ou à peu près, dise aux autres quoi faire avec l'autre moitié. Donc, c'est une bonne chose de parler de comment ils peuvent être concernés. Parmi les drivers, le groupe a nommé la volonté politique en premier. Donc, selon les modèles de l'implantation de l'approche santé dans toutes les politiques, si c'est un pays plus centralisé ou des systèmes de santé ou des administrations plus centralisées, le fait que ça descende, donc du top-down, ça peut avoir une grande influence et ça peut mobiliser aussi les administrations. Mais en même temps, il faut assurer un équilibre, avoir la participation de la population et de tous les secteurs de la société. Oui, ça peut compter la volonté politique, mais ça ne doit pas être une approche imposée. Par exemple, dans une municipalité, on apprenait de M. Nudorf qu'un maire avait une vision très holistique et a même nommé un conseiller responsable de la santé qui a travaillé avec les autres secteurs. Ça a aidé beaucoup pour l'action intersectorielle. Parmi les autres leviers, c'était les données sur les inégalités sociales de santé, donc en ajoutant des stratificateurs sociaux aux données de santé, on peut montrer quels groupes vulnérables, de quelle façon les différents groupes de la population sont affectés dont la santé est affectée. Ainsi, ça peut être un levier pour travailler en intersectoriel, donc pour asseoir autour de la table les autres ministères et les autres acteurs pertinents. Donc, les données, oui, sont importantes pour convaincre, mais ça peut être aussi un moteur pour la santé dans toutes les politiques dans ce contexte d'équité en santé. Et aussi, il serait pertinent de transformer les données de santé dans un indicateur de performance. Donc, ce serait aussi un levier, comment parler de l'évaluation avec des données sur l'équité en santé. Un autre exemple, c'était la crise des opioïdes. Un malheur, plusieurs décès, mais malheureusement, mais si on peut parler du côté positif, plusieurs acteurs sont assis autour de la même table pour chercher des solutions intersectorielles. Pour ce qui manque, c'est sur l'argent. Donc, ça a été nommé déjà par les autres groupes, mais ce qui est important, c'est que même si l'argent d'habitude est très sectoriel, il faut montrer la pertinence de travailler de façon intersectorielle, d'avoir des budgets partagés et de dépenser collectivement l'argent. Donc, avoir une enveloppe que tout le monde autour de la table décide sur quelle priorité investir. Par exemple, on peut aussi montrer que dépenser plus d'argent en éducation va avoir comme impact de dépenser moins d'argent en santé, dans les soins de santé. Donc, on peut avoir, encore une fois, des arguments pour avoir avec nous les autres secteurs de la société. Un autre exemple, logement d'abord. On a montré comment, en investissant en logement, on a réduit les coûts pour la police, pour les soins de santé, à l'urgence et dans d'autres services sociaux. Donc, toujours, le conseil du groupe était de chercher les solutions multisectorielles et de dépenser ensemble pour les priorités identifiées collectivement, sûrement avoir la participation de la population qui nous rappelle qu'il ne faut pas penser à nous, mais penser avec nous. Et enfin, c'était de faire du lobby. Donc, avoir plusieurs partenaires et même parmi les municipalités ou différents secteurs de la société et aller parler aux décideurs ensemble pour trouver des solutions collectives. J'espère que j'ai bien rapporté vos discussions.
Alors, il est 3h05, j'ai distribué aux 5, so we can take a break and reconvene at 3:15 because we have 2 other workshops to do and launch a report. So we have a bit of afternoon. Thank you.
You are not here to relax. You are here to work. I have to do a report to each of your classes.